For all the justified complaints about the round of 16, can I just add one more, please? It's a really, really, really stupid name. Anyway, it's time to start harping on rugby. Hello, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to Harpin On Rugby, where with the help of some fellow fans, I get the chance to harp on what's going on with Leinster, Ireland, and the wider rugby world. First up, joining us this week is the owner-operator of the excellent site Post to Post Sport. This is his 31st pod appearance, but when you add blog articles, he will have made 198 harping contributions over the years. Welcome back to Mr. Kieran Duffy.
Yeah, nice to be back. I'm pushing that 200. Over in Post to Post Sport, the main focus has been World Cup qualifiers, which are ongoing at the moment. There's a big one, a big Asian playoff coming up later this month, so we'll be keeping tabs on those things. But we'll be having rugby bullets as usual to do a bit of URC, Leinster, Ireland talk. I still haven't done my men's Six Nations review, but don't worry, it'll come at some stage.
And also joining us is someone not quite on those kind of harping numbers yet, but with this being his seventh pod, he's certainly well on his way. Hello once more to Mr. Hugo Gordon.
Thanks very much for having me back. I'm a little bit embarrassed by my low numbers now.
We'll get you there. Plenty of matches ahead. Okay, listen, let's crack on with our feature match of the week, which was, of course, Leinster v Harlequins in the round of 16 of the 2024-25 Investec Champions Cup. It was played at Croke Park on Saturday, April the 5th. It was a sunny day at Croker. It was a dry day at Croker, but I also have to say it was a bloody freezing, windy day at Croker as Sam Prendergast got the match underway, Kieran.
Yeah, Sam kicked off to the right, and it's won by Harlequins. I was thinking coming into this game that Harlequins, they probably need to start well. They can't afford to concede early. I was actually predicting the first half. I was thinking it might be a bit like the Bristol Bears game, where or the Bath game, where basically the Premiership side has a good first half, and then Leinster run away with it a bit in the second half. It didn't quite turn out like that, but Harlequins were on top for pretty much the opening 10 minutes. But yeah, so Leinster have a line out then from Harlequins clearing kick at the halfway line. It's thrown to the front, and Leinster play out a bit. It's Sam puts in a good pass to James Lowe, who nearly breaks away. I was very impressed with James Lowe in this game, and he's now closing down Shane Horgan for most Leinster tries of all time. Unfortunately, this move breaks down because unlike Jameson Gibson Park, he plays a poor pass to RG Snyman, pass pretty much on the ground. Player of RG Snyman's size isn't going to be able to reach down and scoop that one up, unfortunately, quick enough. So it's a knock on, and Harlequins have their first scrum. Harlequins win a penalty off the first scrum. I feel like Leinster got a better grip on the scrum as the game went on, but early on, the ref seemed to be pinging against Leinster. So Quins go for the post. Probably makes sense for Quins to go for the post here. I mean, Lee Halfpenny, we know he has range. He's not in his heyday anymore, but we know he can hit them from, I think it was 55 metres out. Penalty fell just short, but it was pragmatic anyway by Harlequins to try just get something on the board early, because that was probably their biggest issue, that they didn't manage to get anything on the board. So they had a line out anyway from that. From that, basically Leinster got a clear, and they had a line out, played through a few phases, and Keenan puts in a really good hit at one point, but Harlequins retain possession. So from there, Osborne nearly probably saw his name up in lights a bit. He nearly got a wonderful intercept try and ran the length of the pitch. Unfortunately, a Harlequins player, I don't know who it was, but got his hand to the ball and just managed to bat it backwards, so it was just out of Osborne's reach. So he just knocked on. Wasn't an intentional knock on, genuine attempt to gather the ball, but he just couldn't get it. So eventually, from there, Harlequins have a scrum, and they get up to the line again. They win a penalty. It's in a kickable position, but they go to the corner. I think that was a mistake. I think it would have been worth getting the 3 points. I know sometimes teams feel like when they have the momentum, and it just it just go to the corner and try to get the try. But to be honest, they probably needed to get a score on the board because they had the most of the first 10 minutes, but didn't manage to put anything on the board. So that comes to nothing, and Harlequins have a line out, and they go to the front, and they maul over the line, but it's held up. So Leinster have a goal line drop out, and from there, when Harlequins are on the attack back, Marcus Smith goes for a bit of an ambitious drop goal attempt, and I think it was kind of panic button time because they had the better of the opening. I think it was about 11 minutes into this stage, and they need to get something on the board. They hadn't managed to. I think Leinster holding up that maul was a crucial moment in the game. But Marcus Smith's drop goal falls short, and Keenan manages to get it clear. So the fact that Quins hadn't gotten anything at this stage, that it was looking ominous that at some stage Leinster hadn't been good at this point, but it was looking ominous that they would click into gear at some stage, as they so often do. So from there, Harlequins have a line out, and Halfpenny kicks it to Keenan, plays in low, cuts inside. Hugo will go into Hugo on the pod, not Hugo Keenan, will go into how good Lowe was in the second half. I thought he had a good first half as well. Ringrose does well here actually to cut inside as well, and Leinster win an advantage. Slimani throws a pass that goes to a Harlequins hand, so we come back for the advantage. I think Slimani was the kind of game that showed he's in the squad for the scrummaging rather than anything else. But he had a couple of knock-ons when he had the ball. But again in this phase, again not like Gibson Park, probably a bit of rustiness. A poor pass to Gary Ringrose, who recovered very well. But from here, Leinster got their first try eventually. So Leinster kicked to the corner. Slimani was down injured. It was looking a bit worrying because Tyg Furlong had barely played, and if he had to come on, it would have been a lot to ask him to play over an hour. But he managed to get up, and he was okay to continue. So Leinster have the line out. It was a penalty against Leinster here, and it was a poor penalty, to be honest, it was a reset for the line out. The line out was just retaken. It was a bit of a messy one because it seemed like there was a bit of confusion of who was going to jump and who was going to receive the ball. Van der Fleer came in to lift before the ball was thrown, I think was the call. But Leinster take the line out again and play it out wide to the left. Conan makes a good break. Lowe nearly gets away and tries to offload, and then eventually the ball comes to Dan Sheehan, and it's super work by him to barge up to the line. What I like about this as well, he gets really close to the line, could have gone for it probably, but he was sensible in thinking, he's probably going to get held up or not going to quite get there. So he manages to get his body in the right position and ensure Leinster retain possession. So Sheehan manages to turn the right way, and Gibson Park pops up to Sam Prendergast, who touches down. Conversion from wide is missed, but that's Leinster clicking into gear there. We call it European Cup mode sometimes. Good pass by Sam in the build-up as well, and really good play by Dan Sheehan. But Leinster were looking rusty there, but this was the turning. I think Harlequins being held up over the line was the turning point in the game, and from here it was pretty much all Leinster. From this point onwards, it wasn't vintage Leinster in the first half, but it was solid, reliable Leinster who were looking like they were always going to win from here. Van der Fleer, who had an excellent game, I know he was awarded player of the match in the end. He was super, and he nearly got away on the wing, put in a big handoff, and said see you later to the Harlequins defence, and he earned a penalty advantage. From here, it looked like Sam Prendergast was making the decision based on, right, we have the advantage, so put a kick through and shot to nothing and see if anyone can get to it. It looked like it had been wasted. Everyone kind of stopped except Caelan Doris, who worked hard to get it. And from here, Leinster get another try. Doris did great to get on the end of the loose kick through. And Joe McCarthy manages to run in a try. I think Joe McCarthy's probably had a little bit of criticism for his discipline and things, but he's still a young player, and I think he did quite well today. And especially with James Ryan out injured, I think him and RG Snyman were a fantastic combination. So that's converted from over the post, and that's 12-0. And from there, the injuries start for Harlequins. They were forced into a change, and they would be forced into a couple of changes over the next 10-minute spell. But basically, between the 19th minute to the 28th minute, they were forced to two changes. They tried to play a bit of rugby, but again, just couldn't get it up the pitch into good positions. And Jamie Osborne, again, I think he had a good game, but he a couple of handling errors, but he does well to get Leinster's third try of the game. Just before that, Quins did have a good bit of possession. They had a couple of scrums, more taking advantage of Leinster handling errors, because again, I think there was still a bit of rustiness. But basically, then Leinster got over for another try. Really good hands. It was, I think it's what you call a broken play try. It was just Harlequins had a scrum up further up the pitch, and Leinster turned it over. Jamie Osborne, who I think had a good enough game. I think he had a mixed Six Nations, but he had a good enough game here. Bit surprised to see him play as 14 because he's a left footer. I was kind of expecting him to play on the bench. I was half thinking maybe they'll start Gary Ringrose on the wing and put Barrett as 12, but Osborne gets away, plays it to Van der Fleer, who makes good yards, and then it goes back to Osborne again, who finishes off, and Sam Prendergast lands a conversion. This is then at this stage in the midst of that. Harlequins had to get a bad injury. Will Porter went down. It looked like just he was going in for a tackle on Jamie Osborne, and Osborne's boot just caught him in the head. It was one of those accidental, probably a little bit unavoidable because rugby's a dangerous game, but boot into the head, obviously you have to be so careful with any kind of head injuries. So at this stage, it's 19-0 to Leinster. Harlequins have been forced into two changes. It's just not looking great. They do get one of their players back. Nick David came back on, having passed his HIA. This time, from the restart, Harlequins have a scrum, and then it's a penalty. Leinster win a penalty this time, and again, it's Leinster go for a line out. The ball's played into the middle, and it's knocked on by Harlequins. Another scrum to Leinster, and at this stage, I was thinking maybe Leinster need to get something here just to seal the game, but at the same time, there's no bonus points in knockout rugby, so it was probably more important for Harlequins to try to get the score back, particularly before half time, but they don't manage to. Leinster in this phase had a bit of attacking ball, showed good hands at times, but just couldn't get over the line. I feel like they kind of almost sleepwalked their way to a 19-0 win. I think in a way it wasn't vintage Leinster by any stretch. It was more just probably European Cup Leinster, not always having to be great, but still managing to find a way to build a big lead against these teams. But Harlequins, they had no luck with injuries, and in fairness, they weren't able to really, aside from them first 10 minutes, they never really looked like scoring. I think them being held up over the line was kind of the big turning point in the game. But at that point, just it gets to half time. It's 19-0. Harlequins have an important player off injured, and to be honest, from there, they'd need a lot more than a Bloodgate scandal to win the game from here. So I think that was pretty much the game over without Leinster having to do well. Hugo will go into how good Leinster were in the second half, but from that point on, it was just it was nearly a foregone conclusion. I feel like I'm not a big fan of the last 16, and I feel like this kind of game shows why that it's nearly just an extension of the pool stage a little bit. But from there, 19-0, long way back for Harlequins. It's pretty much game over without Leinster having done anything too impressive in the half. So probably not a bad first half by Leinster. I think you have to call it a good first half, but probably not far from vintage, I'd say. And thankfully in the second half they managed to hit the higher heights that we'd usually expect them.
Yeah, I mean, Harlequins actually wore their away jersey on the day at Croker, but a bit like their famous home kit, their performance on Saturday did in fact include something of a purple patch. The first 10 minutes, I mean, it really looked like they were going to get that first score. Now, we've seen many times teams in these matches get the first score, which doesn't really mean anything because Leinster haven't had the ball yet, but they really put the pressure on us. But it was their decision making that I couldn't understand. If the penalty in their own half and they kick it, they go for the kick, and then they get one right under the post where they could get 3 points and get the lead, and they don't, and they go for the corner, and it was and then there was the drop goal, and it was, which wasn't really on. It just didn't really seem, didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense for an away team in a game that they were obviously heavily favored against them. On the other hand, I want to. I want to have mitigation for the injuries. They did have a lot of players coming on and off. I think Northmore was going back and forth several times. There was an HIA. There was one of those mouthguard HIAs, and there's the fear. Players are really, really hating that. But on the other hand, there's been many games in Leinster had when we've had like makeshift backlines by the end, and we sure as hell don't get any sympathy for that. So that's kind of the way rugby goes. But from Leinster's side of the things, yes, rustiness definitely. But on the positive side, the defense seems to be taking the priority. They do settle in with that quickly enough, which is important. Second week in a row, I know it was a completely different team. Second week in a row with the first half shutout, which isn't nothing. So there was good on that side of things. Attacking. You could see what we were trying to do, getting the ball into the wide channels and putting extra forwards out there and all that kind of stuff. And it was working sometimes, other times it wasn't. So, but we would have taken a 19-0 lead. What did you think, Hugo?
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much exactly as you both said. It was an odd one in that we were completely in control of the game without ever particularly playing all that well, or at least only in flashes. Quins did start well, but as Kieran said, after that, I think the 10th minute where they were held up over the line, that's the last time they ever get remotely near our try line for the rest of the game. Our scrum wasn't particularly good, lots of handling errors, lots of knock-ons. But any time we really did click, they just had absolutely no answer for us, and we were completely in control really from the moment that first try went over. There were some lovely moments. I thought Osborne's try was a real cracker, actually, and very un-Leinster like, very kind of Toulouse or Bordeaux style kind of sweeping move, which I really enjoyed. And some lovely moments, some lovely kind of bits of play from the likes of Van der Fleer. Some Prendergast passing in that first half was very, very good. And Quinn's injuries were a real problem for them. As you say, Northmore spent half the game shuttling on and off the pitch, but losing 2 players early on and having to go to your bench that early on, particularly with a bench that wasn't that strong to begin with. I actually turned to my friend at halftime and said, I think we're going to blow them away in the second half. So, yeah, I mean, I think it was a good half. I don't think you can go in at 19-0 up and be completely in control of a game and not be good, but definitely we weren't quite hitting kind of full gear. It was a little bit dull, actually, the first half. It was a little bit flat for all the fact that there were 3 tries. Actually, there was kind of large stretches of kind of tedium for lots of it, and things just not quite coming together. But 19-0 up at halftime against a team that was kind of visibly starting to flag, and I did think that we might start to pull away in the second.
Yeah, absolutely. Can your friend corroborate your halftime prediction there?
I'll get the evidence.
I'm only messing. No, seriously. No, it was that kind of a half. All right. It was, the scores themselves were good, but overall as a 40-minute period of rugby, it was kind of a bit of all over the place. But listen, we took the halftime score anyway, and it was Leinster 19, Harlequins 0. Before we return to the pod, first, a little reminder of all the different places you'll find us in the Rugger Sphere, like our YouTube channel, where you'll find a bonus chat where we look ahead to the remaining Champions Cup quarterfinals. To get access to all our latest content, as well as our presence on all the different social media platforms, you can bookmark us at linktree/Harpin On Rugby. We do most of our social media on Blue Sky, so do follow us there if you can, and please be sure to comment, like, share, and subscribe as needed. And so, with the game just about still seeming like a contest, Marcus Smith got the second half underway, Hugo.
Yeah, and in the interest of time, I think we're just going to have to really sprint through the tries because there were so many of them to kind of cover everything in the second half. We'd be here all day. We do start from the moment the half starts. We start to go for jugular in a way that we didn't in the first half. Started with a lovely kind of attacking move left and right that actually unfortunately ended with Simon being held up over the line. But shortly afterwards, Sam Prendergast kicks a penalty to the corner, and off the subsequent maul, Josh van der Fleer splinters off the back to crash over. Sam misses the conversion, but it's 24-0 at this stage. And if there was any question about whether it was game over before then, it was very firmly game over now. 46th minute, we did take Slimani off. Not his best game, unfortunately, at scrum time or in the loose, and did look maybe to be carrying a bit of that ankle injury after the injury in the first half. But Furlong came on, and great to see him back on. And actually, he had some lovely bits of play when he did come on. And it was only about a minute later when we again sweep the ball left heading into Quins' half, and a couple of lovely passes, kind of lovely passes all down the line, but then a couple of really lovely long passes from Keenan and Van der Fleer finds Ringrose out on the left wing, and he just charges over from about 20 yards out, shrugging off defenders. And this one, Sam does convert to make it 31-0. And at this stage, we basically start emptying the benches and taking off anyone who of particular importance. Ringrose and Gibson Park are taken off. Barrett and McGrath are brought on. It must be very frustrating as a team to be 31-0 down and watch the opposing team bring Geordie Barrett off the bench. Can't imagine that does much for morale. And again, only a few minutes later, we send another penalty into the corner, and this time it's Sheehan who crashes in over the back of the maul. To make it 36-0, and that the kind of the emptying of the benches continues from this point. We take off Sheehan, Porter, and Snyman. We bring on Gus McCarthy, Jack Boyle, and Ryan Baird. Baird going into the second row to take over from Snyman. And then we also take off Joe McCarthy, who did actually look to be limping off a little bit, so maybe one to keep an eye on for next week. But also Hugo Keenan. We brought Max Stegan on, also seemingly sent him into the second row. So speaking of makeshift kind of squad positions, we ended up with kind of two back rows playing in the second row. Didn't seem to really impact things much negatively at all. And we brought on Ross Byrne, who went to 10, and Sam Prendergast then seemed to move back to fullback from that point on. Kind of actually meant that Sam was in over on the wing for the next lovely real bit of play. He picks it up on the wing and sends this kind of lovely chicken wing pass out the back. It ends up with Barrett, who has a chips over the defense, catches his own ball, and we kind of charge into the Quins 22. Actually, Gus McCarthy very unlucky to be brought down just short of the line. But shortly afterwards, Northmore, a deliberate knock on leads to a yellow card for him and a penalty try for us to make it 43-0. And by this stage, any semblance that this is a kind of even remotely a contest is gone. Quins have not done anything really in about half an hour at this stage. We're just starting to throw the ball around. It's more of an exhibition game. It's like watching the Harlem Globetrotters play. We're just trying mad stuff. We're trying offloads. We're trying mad passes, and it's all working. It's all sticking. This is some of the most kind of, I don't know, flowing, silky play I've seen Leinster play with in quite a long time. And while, it was against a team that had seemingly largely given up at this stage, it was really good fun to watch. And around the 71st minute, we sent a kind of series of lovely passes all along the line. I think about 10 of our players touch it in kind of the space of a couple of phases. Kind of offloads and quick tip passes all the way along the line until eventually Byrne finds some space over on the right wing and crashes over to make it 50-0. And there's still 10 minutes to go from here. And it's still going to get worse for Quins at this stage. A couple of minutes later, Geordie Barrett, who has a absolutely tremendous game overall. He's very unlucky actually that he doesn't end up with a couple of tries himself in this. But just when it looks like he is going to get away down the right, he is brought down early without the ball, which sees Benson yellow carded. Arguably actually could have been another penalty try. I think the referee kind of took pity a little bit on Quins for this one. There is a brief moment where they're actually down to 13, although it's about a minute later they're back up to 14. And a couple of minutes after that, the ball pops out the back of a ruck, and McGrath's the first one to it, and sends it out to Lowe out on the left wing. And Kieran mentioned that Lowe had another very, very good game, and kind of picked up a score he really deserved. He was kind of, the way he kind of does, just moving around he's just cropping up everywhere around the pitch. Lovely little kind of runs. He's so hard to bring down. One of those players who always seems to makes yards after the tackle. And even if he hadn't scored, he would have been one of our best players on the pitch. But he does get the score. And Quins are now just so obviously want to be anywhere but still on the pitch, and just time for one more before full time, when Furlong, kind of a lovely little again offload out to James Lowe, who kind of starts charging down the middle, kind of expecting to be tackled, and then suddenly realizes there isn't a Quins player anywhere near him, and Lowe is able to pretty much stroll over from about 30-40 yards out. I've seen some criticism of Quins for this one, and it is feeble defending, but in fairness, when you are 55-0 down at the 79th minute mark, I can kind of see why players might not really be pushing themselves too much at that stage. But it is a kind of it sums up Quins' performance on the day. Just really, really not good enough, and we stroll over to make it 62-0. And as much as Champions Cup has maybe been a little bit diminished in recent years, that is still a huge win for any team at this stage of the tournament. And yeah, kind of a very satisfying full stop on what was a very satisfying performance.
Yeah, it's interesting you said you compared them to Harlem Globetrotters, because I remember I used that years ago for a game, and it was against the Cardiff Blues. We had a big Heineken Cup knockout win over them at the Aviva, and of course Lee Halfpenny was also playing that day as well. That's what made me tie them together. But yeah, no, listen, it was important that we came out and won, and we came out strongly, whatever the score was, and we owned those championship minutes. I mean, what happened from there? Yes, Quins, they did kind of give up. They did have their makeshift team, and they were thinking more, okay, listen, we're gonna have to concentrate on the rest of the season. They knew that their day was done. Bernard Jackman in commentary actually called their defense pathetic at one stage, and I think the score was only 40-0 at that stage. So that's how bad it was. But I mean, it was impressive how we were playing, and I was talking about all these different players popping up in the wide channels. It wasn't just the same all the time. There was Sheehan, Conan, Ringrose, Josh was doing it. You mentioned Sam was out there as well. They're really trying to mix it up. That the players that they're getting out there, so they're not giving the same look each time. But that one move that ended in the penalty try, that was a worldy kind of play that got us that. So that was that. I mean, like I say, Quins had kind of given up at that stage, but I think the score was actually 31 at about 50 minutes, so we actually doubled the score from in the last half an hour. But still a lot of positives, I think. Like you said there. What did you make of it, Kieran?
Yeah, I remember at halftime thinking, I hope we go out and put on a big score. And we certainly did. I wasn't expecting that big. But I think, I was also thinking, look, hopefully no injuries, a couple more tries, put down a marker here. And yeah, look, Harlequins had given up with half an hour to go, and understandably so. But at the same time, we were really clinical. I think that's the kind of thing Toulouse or Bordeaux, who are the other two favourites for the tournament, that's the kind of thing they would do in a second half of this nature. So I think it was a good thing. I think it was 7 tries or 7 or 8 in the second half. So it's a good thing we did that, because I mean, it would have been very easy to say, look, you're 40 points up, just throw the ball around, kick the ball around a bit, and it doesn't matter. But I think it was a good thing we put the foot down and started charging, especially when the bench emptied. I think players like Ryan Baird and Max Deegan probably need to be pushing for the starting lineup at this stage. I think Max Deegan's been really impressive this season, probably our best player in the URC this season. I think, good to see Ross Byrne not go quietly into the good night. We know he's going to Gloucester next season, but it's good to see him, play well and show that he's going to finish off this season strongly. Luke McGrath as well, very impressive when he came on. So I think it was good to see us just say, look, we're winning. Let's win this in style. Let's keep winning, because had we switched, look, we had the game won at basically with 50 minutes gone. Had we switched off late for the last half an hour and even conceded a few tries, I think it would make next week much more difficult. So I think, look, ruthless Harlequins have given up, but I think crucially we didn't give up. I think crucially we didn't just settle for the 30-point win. Went to double the score. So look, no complaints about the second half, and crucially no injuries either.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about the next game, because that was a critical part of this. I don't think it was public knowledge about the quarterfinal dates, but I think Leinster did know that if they did win, their home quarterfinal would be on Friday, which means that 6-day turnaround. So they did kind of have to keep that in mind as the score was getting away and kind of manage the squad a bit. And also, yes, you did mention Ross Byrne, a special shout out to him. I'm going to say this every time until he's not selected. Leinster have played 19 competitive games this season. He's been in 19 match day 23s. I don't know if that's ever happened for Leinster before. I very much doubt it. And not only he capped off his try with a conversion where he had to go get the ball and the clock was down to 2. It was at the touchline and he still nailed it. So special kudos for that as well. But listen, comprehensive win. I know a lot of people they hate when Leinster win by 1 point, let alone 62. But listen, for us Leinster fans, it was a satisfying result, which was, of course, Leinster 62, Harlequins 0. Elsewhere in the Champions Cup, well, it was the infamous round of 16, which nobody likes for many reasons. But anyway, it wasn't just a round of blowouts. It was in the Raj Derby, Munster held out for a famous 1-point win, while Castra left it late to hold off the challenge of Benetton. Elsewhere, the games went relatively comfortably with seedings after home wins for Toulon, Northampton, Toulouse, and Bordeaux, who defeated Ulster. And also Glasgow Warriors' win over Leicester gives them a date with Leinster at the Aviva on Friday. Meanwhile, in the Challenge Cup, Connacht defeated Cardiff 35-20 to set up a quarterfinal back in Galway with Racing 92 next Saturday. Our panel will be taking a look at that match plus all the other Champions Cup quarterfinals for our bonus chat, which you'll find on our YouTube channel from Tuesday morning. Going back to our feature match from Saturday, afterwards, Leo Cullen had this to say, quote, "When everyone got back together during the week, there was a really nice buzz about the place, and we had some good training sessions, and it led to a decent performance," end quote. And from the fans' point of view, at the full-time whistle, David Weil said this on our Facebook page, quote, "I thought it was going to be a hard day at the office after the first 10 minutes, but I think the held-up ball knocked the wind out of Harlequins," end quote. Do you disagree, or would you have said the same thing a different way? Well, we always leave a post open on the Facebook page after Leinster and Ireland matches. Why don't you join in the conversation next time? And so now this brings us to our final thoughts, starting with Kieran.
Yeah, look, comprehensive. I mean, 62-0. I think it was good because mainly because the pool stages wasn't easy. I mean, there were a couple of big scores in the end against Bristol and Bath, but at the same time, it wasn't. It's not like we were blowing those teams away for 80 minutes. I mean, the first half of those games were struggles. The La Rochelle game was obviously an arm wrestle. There were plenty of moments this season where it hasn't been great. And I think this is crucially we're seeing Leinster clicking into gear at the right time. Started last week with the win against Sharks, and now this hammering of Harlequins. I think it would have been. I think, look, we're realistically always favourites to win the game. I think the 0 is as crucial as the 62 because that's a really good win for the defence. But as well, I think it sets us up really well going into Glasgow. Glasgow obviously won their game comfortably as well, and they won't fear going to Leinster. Probably a more difficult game than Leicester would have been. But Leinster again will be favourites. I mean, I think there's a bit of luck on Leinster's side that not that any European quarterfinal or semi-final is going to be particularly easy, but we are on the easier side of the draw in the sense that we avoid Toulouse, Bordeaux, and Toulon. So I mean, there's a route there to a final, and I think it kind of reminded me a bit of 2018 that we didn't just win European games; we were blowing teams away. Obviously, in the final was a tight game. But really good win, really solid performance, and I think it was crucial we didn't take the foot off the pedal as well, and massively as well. Looks like no injuries. Joe McCarthy, a potential doubt. That might be one concern. If James Ryan and Joe McCarthy aren't available, then you're going to need a big shift out of Snyman. You're probably going to have Baird starting, and who do you put in the second row there? It looks like. It's one again for the managers to earn their money with, but no, you can't have complaints after a 62-0 win, I think, unless you're the side that conceded the points.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's obviously a lot of talk about the format of the competition, and it is justified. It's far from ideal. I think Leinster are in this particular situation though, where we don't really care about the format. I mean, after the way the finals have gone in previous years, we're just kind of focused on whatever the format is, make it work and get get through the knockout stages. We've picked strong teams in pretty much all the pool matches. We got our maximum points. We earned our top two seeding, and I think a lot of people say, well, Harlequins are crap, whatever. But I think Leinster earned that by getting the top seeding. This way the competition work. You get a 1 or 2 seed, you're going to play at home against a 15th or 16th seed, a team that's probably only won one match or just gotten a small amount of points. And for the way Leinster season goes, we have so many players going to the Six Nations. We want to get our team back together, get used to the calls, get used to playing back together, get used to playing in blue through to the business end of the season. I think it's important that they had this match. Maybe it just was, Hugo mentioned the Harlem Globetrotters. It was almost like an exhibition style rugby, but it was what the players needed to get used to it, and you could see it. And the way the cohesion went through the game. Bit rusty in the first half, got stronger in the second half. That's all positive, and all throughout the defense as well. So I think that all worked out well. What did you make of it, Hugo?
Yeah, I mean, Quins were very poor for a team that, while defensively they've not been the strongest side for a while. In attack, they have shown some real kind of talent over the last few seasons. They really didn't fire a shot after those opening 10 minutes, and they were very poor. But we did still then put 62 points in them. As Kieran was saying, Toulouse and Bordeaux would absolutely have done that. They would have just, put the foot down and run away with it like they did in quite a few games during the pools. Leinster haven't done that for a couple of seasons, and actually it was quite satisfying to see that happen. The attack was great, but as Kieran said, the defense was brilliant the whole way through. We completely suffocated them out of the game. They weren't throwing a huge amount at us, but we completely shut it down. And as Kieran said, that 0 is really as important as the 62. It's our defense that's gotten us this far so far. We have not been great in attack this tournament until this game, really. But that defense continues to be incredibly impressive, and you feel it will be kind of really central to any kind of tilt of the trophy if we are to kind of go that far. And some of those handling, it was really fun to watch. We scored some really fun tries in this, just some really lovely play that again we haven't necessarily seen from Leinster over the last season or two, and hopefully this isn't a blip. Hopefully it is a kind of a sign that we are moving in a more positive place in that way. And even still, it did feel like we had another gear to go to. We weren't pushed in this game. I think there was, particularly in that first half, I think there was a level that we didn't really hit that we maybe could have had we been forced to. The danger, I guess, is that you go into the next game a little bit undercooked. But I think there was the kind of the real positive to take is that actually we could have done more. We actually left points out there, and there is another level for us to go to. I thought some really, really good individual performances. We talked about James Lowe already and Jordy Barrett, both of whom were brilliant. I thought Sam Prendergast was very, very good. Obviously had a bit of a roller coaster with Six Nations, but some of his passing in particular was really, really just exciting to watch. And he definitively won the battle of the kind of exciting young, high-profile tens. I thought Marcus Smith had a pretty ordinary game. Quins' tactic clearly early on was to send up quite a few high balls, contestables, really targeting Osborne in particular early on. And they did it a lot. They kicked a lot in this game, and it did not work. The kicks were not particularly good. But equally, just even as a kind of distributor of the ball, I think Smith kind of was regularly putting some of his supporting players under pressure with some of his passes. So not his best day at the office. And whereas I thought Sam really did shine. A few missed kicks, but broadly a very positive performance. But player of the match, Josh van der Fleer, absolutely unreal in this game. He was everywhere. He was the amount of meters made, the amount of carries, could have had more tries than he did, but just seemed to crop up in pretty much every passage of play that went well for Leinster. He is I've seen some people say the Quiet Six Nations. I actually don't agree. Maybe not flashy, but certainly very industrious. But I think broadly this season he's looking back to his 2022 best, and hopefully that's something that he's able to kind of keep going till the end of this season. But yeah, broadly statement win, which I think we probably did need after maybe a slightly desultory European campaign so far. Job done. We've got Glasgow next. Very, very good team. Obviously second in the URC. thumped Leicester. Actually, the scoreline really flatters Leicester. Glasgow were all over them. That was despite missing a few players. Quite a few of those players quite likely to be missing for the game against us on Friday, which might be to our benefit, but they are a very, very dangerous side that we'll have to take seriously. But you want to go into those games on the back of a real kind of statement performance, and this was it. So kind of we're in as good a place as we can be realistically heading into that and hopefully beyond.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point about Harlequins. I mean, they got themselves kind of reputation not just a couple of seasons ago of they'd be in a game that had 62 points in it, but it'd be more like a 32-30 result in that case. But not so much this. We kind of strangled them with our defense. I think they were I think maybe I spoke earlier about their decision making. I think it was probably our defense that had them doing like that. They knew what they were up against, and they knew that they had to kind of make quick decisions and try to make things happen when they could, and that kind of put them on the back foot. But a big contrast as well to Glasgow next week as well. I mean, they're missing Tuapolatu and Jones in the midfield, which you think would cripple most teams, especially coming up against Leinster. But like you said, they won't fear any away trip. They went down to South Africa and won the URC just last May, and they will definitely be up for this next Friday. So we're going to have to keep that momentum going for sure. That's definite. Well, that's brilliant. Many thanks again to Kieran and Hugo for joining me. Hope to have you back on again soon. Thanks, lads.
Thanks very much, all.
Thanks, Jeff.
As for our next batch of Harpin, we'll have our 80+ column posting on Wednesday before turning our attention to Leinster's next Champions Cup date, this time with the Glasgow Warriors. So please be sure to follow us on any or all of our social media platforms, which you'll find at linktree/Harpin On Rugby. In the meantime, stay safe, everyone. Slán.